into the Caribbean miles below the seas.
She is over 3 football fields in length. At 1,035 feet, she is the longest passenger ship ever built. She is the 4th largest ship ever built at over 70,000 gross tons. She has a beam or width of 111 feet, a draft of 34 feet. Her stacks rise 17 stories above the sea. Her keel was laid in France in 1957. She was launched as the France on May 11, 1960. Rising fuel costs forced her into an early retirement in 1972. Purchased by Norwegian Caribbean Lines in 1979, she was refurbished at a cost of $150 million. She is the jewel of the NCL fleet, the premier vessel of today's cruise industry. She is the SS Norway. During the next few minutes, we will take you behind the scenes on board the world's largest cruise ship to let you better understand how this floating city called the Norway moves through the sea. Our behind-the-scenes tour begins here on the bridge. It is the most modern of any passenger ship in the world. It is the nerve center of the ship, the place where commands are sent throughout the vessel. Perhaps the most important function that takes place on the bridge is the actual maneuvering or driving of the ship. 3 bow thrusters and 2 stern thrusters, propellers housed in tunnels cut laterally through the hull, allow the Norway to turn on a dime and to move sideways to and away from her dock space in Miami. Thus, the Norway can maneuver in or out of any port in the world without the help of tugs. The thrusters are controlled by these 5 handles, located here on the bridge and on each wing. Corresponding gauges monitor the action of the thrusters. The speed of the ship is controlled by these handles, which are also duplicated on the wings of the bridge. Information is relayed to the engine control room, which controls the speed and direction of the 2 main propellers. This gauge shows the speed of the ship. The Norway has a top speed of around 26 knots, or about 30 miles an hour, but usually travels at a cruising speed of 16 to 20 knots. This is slower than during her days as the France, but quite sufficient for her life in the Caribbean. A remarkable feature is this simple joystick device. Complete control of the ship's movement can be accomplished by simply pushing the handle in the desired direction. Commands are relayed to the ship's 5 side thrusters and 2 main screws, thus allowing the Norway to be steered with one hand. When passengers meet the captain and his officers at the welcome aboard party, the old familiar question is, who's driving the ship? Well, the answer is the Iron Man, or the Norway's automatic pilot. The days of the seafarer standing steadfastly at the ship's wheel are long gone. On the Norway's modern bridge, a course is entered into the autopilot and the Iron Man takes over. Of course, an officer and a lookout are on the bridge at all times, watching over operations and the sea around us. A simple flip of a switch puts the ship's course back into control of human hands if adjustments are needed. The course and location of the Norway is constantly plotted by the officer on duty by using charts and satellite orientation. From the wing of the bridge, the horizon is 18 miles away. And as we mentioned, a lookout is constantly on duty, scanning that horizon for ships and debris. But the Norway does not rely on human eyes alone. 3 sophisticated radar units provide information for a 60-mile radius around the ship. The radar scopes provide the location of ships, land formations, and even rain clouds. As a matter of fact, the officer on duty will often announce the impending arrival of rain clouds so as not to soak those passengers on deck. Not only can weather in the immediate area be monitored on the Norway's modern bridge, but weather around the world as well. This weather station is linked with a satellite and can provide the weather picture for any part of the world. Among the other things monitored here on the bridge is the depth of the sea. These draft gauges show how much water is under the ship's keel, both forward and aft. 34 feet of the Norway lies beneath the surface of the sea. Also on the bridge are a number of radios. One constantly monitors VHF channel 16, an emergency frequency. If a distress call is heard on this channel, the Norway would immediately attempt to render assistance in accordance with maritime laws. In an area behind the bridge, you will find the ship's fire detection system. Thousands of heat detectors are located throughout the ship, in every cabin, corridor, and public room. If one of these devices detects excessive heat or a sudden rise in temperature, a corresponding light appears on this panel, showing the exact location of the alarm. It would then be investigated by the ship's firemen. If an emergency situation does exist, that section of the ship can be closed off with fire screen doors, controlled from this location. Another safety feature on board is a series of watertight doors located on decks below, at, or just above the waterline. In the highly unlikely event of an emergency in which the ship is taking on water, these doors can be closed from this panel, sealing off the area. So as you can see, the bridge of the SS Norway is equipped with the most modern navigational devices and safety equipment.